A true war story is never moral. Bombs in Central Europe were completely unreal to us here, not because we couldn't imagine it, but because our place here was too fair for us to accept something like that. We spent the summer in complete selfishness, I'm happy to say. The people in the world who could be selfish in the summer of 1942 were a small band, and I'm glad we took advantage of it. He needed me. I was the least trustworthy person he had ever met. I knew that. He knew, or should know that too. I had even told him. I had told him. But there was no mistaking the shield of remoteness in his face and voice. He wanted me around. The war then passed away from me, and dreams of enlistment and escape and a clean start lost their meaning for me. True war stories do not generalize. The class above, seniors, draft bait, practically soldiers, rushed ahead of us toward the war. They were caught up in accelerated courses and first aid programs in a physical hardening regimen, which included jumping from this tree. In war, you lose your sense of the definite, hence your sense of truth itself, and therefore it's safe to say that in a true war story, nothing much is ever very true. That was when things began to change. One day, I couldn't make out what was happening to the corporal's face. It kept changing into faces I knew from somewhere else, and then I began to think, he looked like me. In any war story, but especially a true one, it's difficult to separate what happened from what seemed to happen. This touched an interesting point Phineas had been turning over in his mind for a long time. "It's very funny," he said, "but ever since then, I've had a feeling that the tree did it by itself. It's an impression I've had, almost as though the tree shook me out by itself." Often in a true war story, there is not even a point. Everyone has a moment in history which belongs particularly to him. It is the moment when his emotions achieve their most powerful sway over him. And afterwards, when you say to this person, "the world today," or "life," or "reality," he will assume that you mean this moment, even if it's 50 years past. The world, through his unleashed emotions, imprinted itself upon him, and he carries the stamp of that passing moment forever. There's nothing much to say about a true war story, except maybe, the war could be deadly, all right, but I was used to finding something deadly in the things that attracted me. There was always something deadly lurking in anything I wanted, anything I loved. And if it wasn't there, for example with Phineas, then I put it there myself. You can tell a true war story by the way it never seems to end. Not then, not ever. Your friend is dead. The war will always be fought very far from America, and it will never end. In the end, of course, a true war story is never about war. It's about the special way that dawn spreads out on a river when you know you must cross the river and march into the mountains and do things you are afraid to do. It's about love and memory. It's about sorrow. It's about sisters who never write back and people who never listen. The point was, the grace of it was, that it had nothing to do with sports, for I wanted no more of sports. They were barred from me, as though when Dr. Stanpole said, "sports are finished," he had been speaking of me. I didn't trust myself in them, and I didn't trust anyone else. It was as though football players were really bent on crushing the life out of each other, as though boxers were in combat to the death, as though even a tennis ball might turn into a bullet. I never killed anybody, and I never developed an intense level of hatred for the enemy, because my war ended before I even put on a uniform. It was an active duty all my time at school. I killed my enemies there. Only Phineas never was afraid. Only Phineas never hated anyone.